The alarm bells screamed across the Galactic Council's Deep Space Monitoring Station. Commander Xyloth, a crystalline being whose 4 luminous eyes could see across the electromagnetic spectrum, froze in disbelief. The holographic display before him showed something that could not exist, an energy signature emerging from the Void Nebula. For 3,000 years, that nebula had been marked as a place where physics itself went to die. Its gravitational fields twisted time into knots, shredding even the strongest vessels down to atoms. No ship had ever gone in and come back. The Void Nebula was a cosmic graveyard, a warning to every civilization that even the galaxy itself has boundaries not meant to be crossed. And yet, here it was. A ship. A very real, very alive starship was moving steadily away from the nebula. The computer system identified the vessel's design. And that made even less sense. It was human. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage. Their ships were fragile, their technology primitive compared to the great powers of the Council. Humanity could barely handle routine hyperspace travel without tearing their vessels apart. And now, a human ship had sailed straight through the deadliest region in known space. Xyloth touched the comms panel with one crystalline finger, sending an emergency broadcast rippling across 12 star systems. Within minutes, representatives from 17 alien species appeared in shimmering projection across the council chamber of Nexus Prime. The chamber filled with voices, some calm, some panicked, some trembling with ancient memory. Elder Vorak of the crystalline hegemony, his voice carrying centuries of authority, spoke first. We have faced many threats in our history. But this is different. A human ship has done the impossible. The question is not how, but why. The ship continued on its path, unknowing, untroubled. Its name was UNS Defiance. On board, the 200 men and women of the Defiance went about their duties in quiet confidence. To them, it had been nothing more than a routine hyperspace jump, a maneuver to avoid pirate activity in the sector. Captain Jake Harrison sat in his command chair, eyes fixed on the stars. His crew were calm. Focused. To them, nothing unusual had happened at all. But in her lab, Dr. Amy Clark had discovered the truth. Her navigation data was impossible. 3 separate analyses confirmed it. Their jump had taken them through gravitational distortion strong enough to turn carbon into diamond. Radiation that should have cooked them alive. Temporal anomalies that could age a human body to dust in seconds. Yet the Defiance had passed through it all without a single alarm, as if it were a Sunday stroll through the park. Amy's fingers trembled as she pulled up the official galactic charts. Every database, every archive, every alien record agreed, the Void Nebula was a region no ship survived. It was death incarnate. And yet here they were, alive. Whole. Untouched. Her final discovery was worse. The data suggested the ship wasn't just enduring impossible conditions. It was, reshaping them. Reality itself was bending, ever so slightly, to accommodate the presence of one fragile human ship. As Amy whispered this truth to Captain Harrison, light years away the Galactic Council was descending into chaos. Commander Xyloth transmitted the raw sensor logs to every representative. The readings were undeniable. The human vessel had projected energy fields that sliced through spacetime distortions like a knife through water. Elder Vorak searched ancient archives for a precedent, and what he found chilled the chamber to silence. 50,000 years ago, there had been another civilization. The Forerunners. They had ruled not just worlds but the very laws of physics. They crossed black holes as stepping stones, shaped stars like clay, and disappeared without explanation. Most of their records had been erased by frightened descendants. But fragments remained. And those fragments spoke of beings who walked like gods. Now, humans, a species believed primitive, had displayed echoes of the same power. After 6 hours of heated debate, the Council reached a decision. 17 species voted as one. The human ship could not be allowed to exist. Not because of what it had done, but because of what it meant. If humanity truly possessed the power to walk where physics could not follow, then they were a threat to the galactic order itself. A species outside the leash of natural law cannot be contained. It cannot be controlled. The Council's declaration spread across star systems. The UNS Defiance is to be destroyed. By any means necessary. Back aboard the Defiance, Captain Harrison was reviewing star charts when his comms officer received an encrypted transmission. The source was anonymous, someone within the Council itself. The message was short. Terrifying. The galaxy had declared war on humanity. And his ship was the first target. Admiral Rex Cooper burst onto the bridge, his face pale. On the tactical screen, 3 hegemony warships were already closing in. Dozens more would follow. The bridge crew looked to Harrison, waiting for the order to run. To hide. To retreat. But Harrison's eyes did not waver. Instead of fleeing back into known space, he pointed forward, into the deepest unknown. Plot a course into the graveyard, he said. The bridge fell silent. The graveyard of ships, a region where thousands of vessels had vanished without a trace across 10,000 years. A region even the bravest explorers dared not enter. And yet, without hesitation, the navigation computer plotted the course as if it were nothing unusual. No warnings. No alerts. Just another line through empty space. As the Defiance turned toward its impossible path, Security Chief Lisa Morgan reported something unsettling. Sensors were detecting anomalies in the lower decks. Shadows moving where no light source existed. Shapes flickering just beyond the reach of human perception. Something was already aboard. And outside, the hegemony fleet halted its pursuit. Commander Xyloth shook his crystalline head. To chase a human ship into the graveyard was pointless. The humans were committing suicide. But Elder Vorak was not so certain. He summoned a division spoken of only in whispers, the Void Hunters. Cybernetic assassins who existed half outside of reality, capable of phasing through walls and striking unseen. They had killed gods before. They would do it again. And so, as the UNS Defiance sailed into the graveyard of ships, the Council prepared its first real attempt at extermination. And here is where I want to pause. Because this story isn't just about a single human ship. It's about what happens when a species everyone underestimates suddenly rewrites the rules. What do you think? If humanity could bend reality itself, not through magic, but through something buried deep in our genetics, would the galaxy see us as saviors, or as monsters? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this speculative journey, make sure to subscribe. We've only just begun. The UNS Defiance drifted into the graveyard of ships. A region whispered about in fearful tones across the galaxy. Thousands of vessels had entered over millennia. None had ever returned. Their hulks floated silently in the dark, alien wrecks from 100 civilizations, twisted metal frozen in time, shattered hulls preserved in a field of distorted physics. Most crews had died instantly. Others had lingered. Their final transmissions spoke of shadows that whispered in forgotten tongues. Of voices that did not belong to any species. Of fear so deep it felt like the universe itself wanted them gone. And now, humanity's most fragile ship wandered willingly into the graveyard. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council convened in secret chambers beneath the capital spire. Elder Vorak's crystalline voice carried an edge of fear as he addressed the others. The humans are not ordinary. They walked through the Void Nebula untouched. Now they sail into the graveyard without hesitation. We cannot allow them to leave alive. Commander Xyloth clenched his clawed hands. Conventional fleets are useless here. No ship survives the graveyard. Which was why the Council had unleashed their darkest tool. The Void Hunters. Forged in secret labs by splicing cybernetics with quantum distortion fields, the Hunters existed partly outside reality. They could phase through walls, travel without leaving a trace, and kill without sound. The Council had sworn never to use them again after the Eridan massacre. But now, 17 species agreed, humanity's survival had justified their return. On board the Defiance, Captain Harrison's crew began noticing strange things. A corridor light flickering when no power fluctuations were recorded. Tools left in one place and found in another. Shadows bending in directions light never touched. Security Chief Lisa Morgan was the first to see one. She had been patrolling Deck 7 when a figure slipped across her vision. Tall, armored, faceless, and yet somehow insubstantial, as if it weren't fully there. By the time she raised her weapon, the figure had vanished. Her report to the captain was short, clipped, and professional. But her hands trembled as she spoke. Harrison didn't doubt her. He had felt it too, the subtle unease that crept through the ship like a cold wind. Something was hunting them from within. It happened in the engine room. Chief Engineer Daniels was checking the quantum stabilizer when the lights flickered. For half a second, gravity shifted sideways. And then, nothing. When his assistant returned, Daniels was gone. No sound. No body. No trace. Only his tool kit, scattered across the floor. Dr. Amy Clark's scans showed no sign of life. No transporter signatures. No energy residue. It was as if Daniels had been erased from existence. That was when the crew realized. The graveyard wasn't empty. It was infested. Most species would have panicked. Most crews would have shut down in fear, retreating to prayer or despair. But humans are different. Fear sharpens them. Fear makes them creative. Lisa Morgan organized a security sweep, using motion detectors linked with old-fashioned tripwires. Primitive tools that shouldn't have worked against post-quantum assassins. And yet, the first hunter that crossed the wires triggered every alarm on Deck 5. The crew opened fire, not with energy weapons, but with solid projectiles. Bullets, simple and brutal. The hunter phased through walls, but when metal tore through its distortion field, the creature howled in a sound that bent glass. It staggered. It bled. And for the first time in centuries, a void hunter fell. The council watched the telemetry in stunned silence. The hunters had never failed. They had slaughtered ancient gods. Yet here, aboard a human ship, they had been slowed, even injured. Elder Vorak whispered the thought everyone else feared. It is not their weapons. It is their nature. The humans bend reality. Even the hunters are not safe. But the hunters did not retreat. They adapted. More infiltrated the Defiance, moving in silence, striking at isolated crew members. 2 medics vanished from the infirmary. A navigation officer disappeared while running a simulation. The crew grew smaller by the day. Yet with each loss, the humans became more relentless. Their traps more cunning. Their counterattacks more unpredictable. It was as though the hunters were fighting not just soldiers, but predators. In the chaos, Dr. Amy Clark made a discovery that froze her blood. Analyzing the wrecks in the graveyard, she found a disturbing pattern. Every ship here, alien, advanced, powerful, had been undone not by weapons, but by the same distortion anomalies the Defiance had passed through unharmed. And worse, their crews had reported the same hunters. The graveyard wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was a hunting ground. And humanity had not stumbled into it by accident. Something wanted them here. The truth hit Captain Harrison like a hammer. The council hadn't just condemned them. They had fed his ship to something older, something the galaxy itself feared to name. But instead of despair, Harrison's voice grew calm. Then we'll give them a fight they'll never forget. He ordered the crew to turn the Defiance into a trap. Every corridor became a kill zone. Every bulkhead, a weapon. The ship's reactors were rigged to flood localized sections with magnetic storms, distorting even the hunter's phasing. When the next hunter attacked, the humans were waiting. It appeared on deck 3, claws raised to strike. But before it could move, gravity inverted, slamming it into the ceiling. Lisa Morgan's team opened fire from 3 angles. The creature shrieked as its distortion field collapsed. Its body crumbled into ash, scattering like dust into the air. News of the battle spread quickly through secret channels. For the first time in recorded history, a void hunter had been killed by mortals. By humans. Across the galaxy, fear turned to something else. Curiosity. Whispers spread among oppressed species. The Council wasn't invincible. Its assassins weren't unstoppable. And the humans, those fragile, reckless beings, had shown the way. The galaxy began to watch the Defiance not with fear, but with hope. But the graveyard wasn't done with them. As the Defiance fought off the last hunters, its sensors detected a structure ahead, massive, ancient, impossibly large. A station, built into the heart of the distortion field. Older than any Council record. Older, perhaps, than the galaxy itself. Amy Clark stared at the readings in disbelief. The physics surrounding the station bent in ways her instruments couldn't explain. The Defiance hadn't just wandered into a graveyard. It had been guided to a doorway. And beyond that doorway, something waited. This is where the story sharpens. Because now it isn't just about humans against the Council. It's about something hidden, something the galaxy tried to bury. What do you think lies within that ancient station? A weapon? A warning? Or something so vast that even the Council was afraid to speak its name? Tell me your theories in the comments. And if you're enjoying this journey, remember to subscribe, because in part 3, humanity will finally come face to face with the architects of their fate. The UNS Defiance floated before the impossible. A station so vast it dwarfed the largest alien fleets, built into the fractured core of the graveyard. Its outer hull shimmered with patterns that shifted when no one looked directly at them, as though the metal itself carried memory. Dr. Amy Clark whispered the thought no one dared say aloud. This isn't a station. It's a monument. Older than the galaxy itself. For 500,000 years, the Council had erased all records of humanity. But here, in the ruins of forgotten empires, the truth waited for them. And someone, or something, had led them to it. Captain Harrison ordered the ship closer. As they approached, the Defiance's hull sang with resonance, as though the structure itself were playing the ship like an instrument. Then, without warning, a section of the monument opened. No transmission. No energy spike. Just a door in the void, yawning silently, inviting them in. Every instinct screamed it was a trap. But humanity's story has never been about retreat. The Defiance entered the station. Inside was a cathedral of machinery. Towering pillars of crystal pulsed with faint light. Gears of impossible size rotated with no visible energy source. It was a machine that felt alive, breathing, watching. The crew felt it too. Not fear, exactly, but the crushing awareness of being studied. It began as a whisper through the comms. Not in words, but in feelings. A pulse of memory. The crew staggered as flashes filled their minds, cities of light spanning galaxies, beings of pure thought weaving stars into constellations, and then, silence. Lisa Morgan gasped. We're standing inside their memory. Amy Clark steadied herself. Not memory. A message. The images shifted, to war. Civilizations rising against something they could not describe. The architects, the builders of the station, standing at the edge of defeat. Their final act had been to hide their warning here, knowing one day someone would stumble upon it. That someone was human. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched in horror. Their hidden transmitters inside the graveyard relayed everything. The Defiance had entered the station. The humans were seeing what no other species was meant to see. Elder Vorak slammed his claws against the chamber table. This cannot continue. If the architects return, the galaxy will know we deceived them. Another counselor hissed. You mean, if humanity returns? They are the only species reckless enough to listen. The council knew their grip on power had always been fragile. They ruled through fear, through control of history, through the illusion that the galaxy had no alternatives. But if humanity carried the architect's warning back to the stars, everything would change. Inside the station, the whispers grew clearer. The crew pieced fragments together. The Void Hunters were not creations of the Council. They were remnants of the Architect's war. Designed to fight something else. Weapons left unfinished, corrupted by time, twisted into predators haunting the graveyard. The Council had discovered them centuries ago, captured fragments, and rebuilt them into assassins. They thought they controlled the Hunters. But the station revealed the truth. The Hunters answered to no master. They were drawn to the Architect's technology. Drawn to finish a war that had never truly ended. Amy Clark's voice shook. The Council isn't the enemy. They're scavengers. Parasites feeding off something they don't understand. Harrison's eyes hardened. Then we're not fighting a rebellion. We're walking into a war older than every empire combined. The Defiance's crew faced a decision. They could flee, return to human colonies in hiding, and bury the secret forever. Or they could listen. And risk becoming the torchbearers for a war the architects could not finish. The message inside the monument shifted again, focusing on humanity. Out of countless species, only they had survived the graveyard intact. Only they had killed the Hunters. The architects had left the station not for the Council. Not for the galaxy. But for the next species capable of standing where they had fallen. Humanity had been chosen. When the Defiance activated the core, a shockwave rippled through space. The entire graveyard lit up, derelict ships glowing as if their ghosts were waking. Across the galaxy, sensors detected it. Civilizations trembled as the pulse reached them. The Council tried to suppress the truth, but whispers spread like wildfire. The architects had stirred. And humanity was at the center of it. On distant slave worlds, beings chained for generations looked up and saw the skies burn with unfamiliar light. To them, it was a sign. In mining colonies stripped bare by Council taxes, workers spoke in hushed tones. The humans survived the Hunters. In hidden enclaves where ancient knowledge was forbidden, scholars whispered. They entered the architect's monument. For the first time in 500,000 years, the galaxy began to imagine something beyond fear. Panic spread among the Council. Some demanded extermination fleets to erase humanity immediately. Others, older and more fearful, warned that open war would only confirm the truth. A few, quietly, began to wonder. If the architects chose humanity, perhaps it was because the galaxy needed them. The unity of the Council, forged over 500,000 years of domination, began to crack. The final message revealed itself in fragments. Not a weapon. Not salvation. A warning. Images of galaxies burning. Shapes that blotted out suns. A silence that devoured civilizations whole. The architects had fought not to rule, but to hold back something greater. They called it simply the endless silence. It was still out there. Waiting. And humanity had just announced themselves by lighting the beacon. Back aboard the Defiance, silence fell across the bridge as the warning ended. The crew sat in stunned disbelief. Finally, Captain Harrison spoke, his voice steady. We're not the first to fight them. But we might be the last. If the architects believed someone would rise after them, then we owe it to the galaxy to stand. He looked out across the endless dark, and for the first time, the crew felt not hunted, but called. And so humanity stepped into the role no one wanted them to play, not rebels, not survivors, but inheritors of an ancient war. The council wanted humanity erased. The hunters wanted them devoured. And beyond it all, something greater watched from the void. What would you do, if your species was chosen not for survival, but for sacrifice? Would you take the mantle, or hide and let the galaxy burn? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't yet, because this story is just beginning. The architects left their warning. But soon, we will see if humanity has the strength to face what comes next.